Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the LA Dude Podcast, where we talk about all things from comics to movies to video games and everything in between. We are back, this time with an episode right off the heels from a very decisive, I would say, launch of a new video game. Wouldn't you say, Glenn?
Yeah, it definitely was. It was an unexpected kind of fail, I'd say. I mean, because it didn't really make sense why it failed. Because the first game, that we're talking about, did so well. Like when it came to launching, it didn't really fail. And then the second game comes out, and then,
or at least not fail like this to our knowledge.
Right? Yeah, it seemed like it was definitely not criticized compared to what it is right now. Yeah.
And of course, we are talking about the failed launch of Overwatch 2, releasing officially on October 4th, 2022, replacing the original game in of itself, becoming a free-to-play game with a battle pass, much like Warzone or Fortnite. Now, while we are going to talk about Overwatch 2, that is not the only game that we are going to talk about, because this episode is all about failed game launches. Now, I probably want to specify a little bit, and we can specify a little bit too, or you can as well. When we say failed, we don't necessarily mean financially or commercially. We mean that it has a troubled launch. It fails to impress on its first impression. It has a lot of issues, bugs, controversy, a lot of things that Overwatch 2 have, but a lot of things that have also found its way into other games that a lot of people were either hyped for, had high expectations for, and were ultimately disappointed, and it left bitter tastes in people's mouths. Now, let me ask you, Clint, where do you want to start on this? Because we could go from, like, dates, like, years of games, potentially, or we could just jump right into going back and forth with some video games.
I think we should just kind of go with the flow and whatever we have and what comes to us. I know me and you both have researched a bit, trying to make sure and remember
looked a
some
little
of these.
bit of some of the stuff.
But I think we should specifically start and just kind of dive into the Overwatch 2 stuff.
Fair enough.
Since that's something we already brought up, and why it's such a, I guess you would say a botch of a launch.
Yeah.
Because the thing is like some games that we're going to talk about are sequels to games, whether that be the first game, like the second game, the third game, the fourth game.
Yeah, part of a franchise or a direct sequel or something like that.
The reason why this one's such a shocker, in my opinion, is the fact that this isn't a complete sequel of the game. This is kind of like the original game plus a couple add-ons
with a new skin on it.
Exactly. Now, there's, like, of course, if you don't know about Overwatch, and I'm not going to take this from Dalton because I know he probably would want to talk about it too, but this one is a little different than the first game because Overwatch 2 has a story mode. But as of right now, as of recording, there is no story mode in it. It's going to be patched in later. So as of right now, the game is just, like Dalton was saying, the original game with a couple extra stuff, and just like, it's just the original game. But yet it went from the original game being, fine, just like it's been for 6 years, and then you take 2 days or 3 days off, you come back to this new skin of the game, and now it's just ruined.
Well, and going right into it, some of the reasons it was ruined, first, the way it started off, the Overwatch 1 servers were completely shut off. So there is no going back to the first game. No. You own the first game, it no longer exists. It's Overwatch 2.
When if you have the disc version of Overwatch 1, you put it in, it's going to pop up Overwatch 2.
Yeah, because there was a massive update to it to where it replaces the game. Kind of like, not like Fall Guys, what they did, because they had the original version of Fall Guys, and then they made a newer one where it was like more polished.
That game was specifically because they didn't. I don't think they had a disc version of it, obviously, but It was like, if you have this version, you're gonna have to download the other one. Like, it's not going to.
And it saved everything.
And it did. It saved all your stuff through your account, but
it gave you all the trophies back and everything. Now different pictures, but
it doesn't.
If you're on,
like, you still had to re-download it. It was technically still a different game.
Yeah, it was, because there was like old Fall Guys, and then now it's just Fall Guys. I think that was the first major. or not the first major red flag, I guess. It was one of the later ones that everyone was like, wow, they really are shutting off the game like they said they, like, I guess it was like, it finally set in. It's like they said, Overwatch 1 was going to shut down, this and that. And it's just kind of like, it was a realization setting in. But that also came with a lot of problems. So, shutting off the Overwatch servers, they were creating new servers for Overwatch 2. That led to a lot of problems because on launch day, so it went live like 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Correct.
Which on the East Coast, that would be 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it launched in the middle of the day. Most people are either at work, getting out of school, still in school if you're on the West Coast, or in the middle central United States, or even launching overseas, Europe, any different time zone. It was really weird.
It was a very odd game it was a very odd time for a game to launch in general.
But then again, they do it with their updates half the time, which is really weird anyway. But not only did it really mess up the servers, the servers were completely screwed. You could not get in the game for most of the first week. Even the second week, a lot of people couldn't get in the game.
People are still having problems with it as of recording.
Problems with the servers. Most people, when they started getting on it, they realized the extent of what Blizzard was talking about with their SMS protection, which was you had to put your phone number in the video, like, to your account, your battle.net account, which connected with, Blizzard and everything. You had to use your phone number in order to make sure if this was your own account. They were trying to crack down on Smurf accounts, hackers, this and that. Even though it made no sense, you could easily, if you have like an iPhone, you can change your phone number in an instant and automatically have a different account, everything. And it could be a Smurf account. So that was a big problem. The biggest problem, because it was kind of hidden, I guess, and not really brought up a lot when they originally said it. Certain phones, especially if it was a prepaid phone, which means, you buy a phone and you can use like Net10, Cricket, or some versions of Cricket, some Verizon, like phone plans, you couldn't use it. Your phone number would not technically count because you would have to have like an Apple or something like that actually had a different kind of plan.
Well, the biggest thing in continuing with what you're saying is the problem that it was like, it didn't matter what kind of phone you had. The problem was it had to be specific plans from different companies. So like Verizon, like you were talking about, I'm pretty sure they were 100% good.
No, I don't think all of them were.
Maybe. But there were certain things like Cricket and stuff like that where it's just like it was not, you couldn't use it. And that's just, I mean,
so here's the thing.
That's discrimination.
Well, it's making it to where you're punishing players for not having enough money, pretty much. That's the first sign.
Or it's trying to push you to go to a certain service of phone provider.
Like, here's the thing. I'm not buying an iPhone and going off of iPhone's plan. I'm not signing a contract just to have a certain phone.
The thing is, it's not, the whole situation wasn't for the most part, it wasn't a phone situation. It was the service provider in general. So the big,
that's what I'm saying. If you had a prepaid phone,
and so the
where
big
you can put
issue,
that stuff on it, you couldn't.
Like we were saying, the big issue is that unless you were under 2 or 3 different phone providers, like Dalton was saying, like Verizon, Cricket, was it Boost Mobile, stuff like that, you could not, you couldn't play the game. And that caused a lot of issues because not everyone has Verizon, and stuff like that.
Well, it's not even that. Even if you had certain plans like Verizon, if you thought you were good, they would tell you, no, you're not good. You can't play this game. Your phone number's not valid.
Right.
That was the problem. And it wasn't even just all these prepaid phones. Certain plans.
It also seemed like
company.
Any person that ever had a phone with a phone number, and then transferred that phone number to another phone, that caused an issue as well.
It was a big mess. I mean, and they did come out and say that they try to fix it a little bit, but really it's not fixed. If you ever played Overwatch 1 prior, as of like July of 2021, and you had a Battle.net account since July of 2021, you did not have to put your phone number in. So they patched it to where we've been playing since at least 2017. I thought it was later 2016, but I think it's 2017. We've been playing that long, and we got a Battle.net pass. I don't think they officially said consoles have to do it until about September, because that's when we officially had to do it. I went back and I was trying to figure out if whatever they were saying or not was if it had to be the Battle.net pass on July of 2021, or if it was whatever it was saying. I was trying to read between the lines, trying to figure it out. I didn't have an official Battle.net account until September of that year. So that means I know you didn't, and I know our younger brother who plays Overwatch didn't until around that time. I think it was mostly PC it was first, and then they put it on consoles. Now, that still didn't fix the issue, even though people like us who've been playing since, 2021 at least, or before, or whatever, had an account. That doesn't fix the issue, because if you are now playing Overwatch 2 and like officially just now playing it, you still have to have your phone number, which is still an issue because not everybody can do that. Another big issue, other than the servers and the SMS protection, is the fact that if you're new to the game, you have to play at least 100 to 150 standard matches, not necessarily win, but play them, in order to unlock the entire Overwatch 1 roster before you can even start on trying to get the new people that they're adding with the Battle Pass. And some people had issues because half their characters were locked, and they've been playing, since launch, and had all their stuff merged over, and they had a lot of them still locked. And even though they had all these characters, skins, weapons, gold weapons, that was a big issue for competitive players. Their gold weapons were not showing up, a lot of them at least. And it wasn't just console, it was PC too. So this has gone from like PlayStation, Xbox, I guess Switch, right? They put it on Switch for some stupid reason.
They got it on Switch.
To PC. PC you'd think would be fine, because that's, Blizzard mostly focuses on PC for the most part. But Overwatch, it was like, these issues are everywhere. I don't understand. And there's so many bugs, like game breaking bugs. Torbjorn and Bastion, two of the characters that are damaged characters in the game. This week alone, as of recording, it's October 12th. They got taken out of the game because they were glitching so bad and they were broken. Now, Torbjorn, one of the characters that I mentioned, he still be able to play like regularly in quick play, regular play, but not in competitive. And the other one, Bastion, he's completely taken out right now to be reworked. There have been so many issues with this game. It's been delayed at least a handful of times because they never had an exact date. You have no story mode, which you promised, and then now it's been pushed back. Your servers are busted, and they're still trying to fix them, apparently. Even after they said they've already tried to fix it, it's still an ongoing issue. A lot of the game modes, they've limited, instead of 6v6, 6 players versus 6 players, they limited to 5v5. So in Overwatch, you get, in a traditional 6v6 from Overwatch 1, 2 damage characters, 2 healer characters, and 2 tank characters for defense. And offense, but the tanks are for defense mostly. It's limited to 1 tank, 2 defense players, and 2 healers. So they've completely limited that as well. On top of having to pay for a battle pass to try to unlock new characters and skins when they had the loot boxes. Which, yeah, you could buy them, but you got them for free for winning half the time, or leveling up. Apparently also, real quick, the comp, they've reset it almost to where you pretty much have to start over from scratch on competitive. And it's a weird system. Apparently some people like it, some people don't. I don't know. I don't play competitive. But it's really weird. Overwatch 2 so far, even though it's free to play, it's become such a hot mess in a week. A straight up fail on launch. And that's just the first game we have to talk about.
Yeah, there is a lot more games that we're going to talk about. One I wanted to bring up was something I really didn't know about, but I thought was worthy enough to be brought up because of how critically acclaimed this game is now, compared, I guess, to when it launched. And that was Fallout New Vegas.
Was it really that like critically panned on launch?
So here's what I got. Again, I want to make this very clear. I don't play the game, but this was something that I wanted to bring up because of how praised this game is now.
Especially from, if you've been on the channel long enough, our friend Ethan. He loves this game.
Yeah.
He worships this game on it, like kissing its feet. He loves this. He has played it
into this game
over and over, console, PC, played it with mods, whatever. He will replay this game any chance he gets.
And besides Ethan, I mean, critically, this game is just like 9 out of 10. 10
yeah,
out of
everybody
10.
wants a sequel to it.
I've never seen this game review-wise under 8 out of 10.
I've never looked at the reviews for it because I'm just not into Fallout.
Now, the thing I had an issue with when I was reading is that how bugged out this game was when it first came out. It was to the point where some people felt it was unplayable.
We have a game that was like that.
And it was because apparently the Fallout New Vegas is like any other Fallout game in which it's maybe more so with this game, it's more open world.
Yeah.
Because once you're done with the game, you can still continue to play it, do other things, just goof off.
Yeah.
And of course, with an open world game, you're gonna have more bugs because different things generate different things happen.
Or at least there's more you can encounter.
Yeah. So apparently, when this game came out, well, first off, apparently PS3 was almost never fixed for this game. Like some of the bugs were, but like when it comes to slowness and all that, it never got fixed. So like more of the Xbox stuff is really where you can play it.
Or PC.
Or PC, yeah, unless you have a really bad PC, and then it's gonna not work in general. But so apparently some of them wouldn't appear, and then when you are in a game and you're really trying to, I guess, go through the story, and there is some serious parts of the story, NPCs' heads are just spinning. And they spin around and around and around and around, and then some things just like crash and freeze. And apparently, when the game first came out, that's how it was. And to me, I think that would be considered a failed launch because
honestly, God, that'd be hilarious. Though, see, when,
it's funny, but imagine
Exorcist.
paying all that money for that game, being so excited for it, and then something like that would happen.
No, yeah, I mean, I don't want to cut you off on this game if there's anything else. That goes into WWE 2K20. You know, we talk about wrestling on our other podcast, the LA Do Wrestling Podcast. You should give it a listen. But that was a big thing for us gaming-wise because, you know, it was one of those things where a lot of the 2K or even the EA Sports games, they're a yearly thing. WWE 2K20, it just seemed like it was another yearly thing. The one downside that it had going in was that Yuke's one of the developers through most of the WWE wrestling games since some of the early SmackDown vs. Raw games where this series originated.
If I'm not mistaken, Yuke's has been with the company since 2003 or maybe before.
At least. Most notably for like the SmackDown vs. Raw games. Leading up to the 2K games. When they left as developers, 2K and I forget the division that they had under this game.
Visual Concepts?
Visual Concepts, yeah. Essentially, they had to start from scratch. Like they were given, they had some of the basic templates for a lot of the characters, the mocap, whatever, but they had to start from scratch. And by God, was it a mess. Like getting this game, plugging it in, and then realizing how broken it was on day one prior to a day one patch. It was so bad. It would crash constantly if you try to play a game or a match. If you try to have multi-men matches or multi-women matches, it would crash. some of the creation suite, which was a big thing for us because we would do a lot of creations, either like characters, arenas, stuff like that. It would freeze and give you an error message and kick you off the game halfway through doing it, and you would lose all your data. Or not data, but all your progress. The game was so bugged, especially if you paid for like a special edition, you felt cheated. That's how I felt on launch. I felt like it was a total waste of money. Because there was like we got the collector's edition. I had paid for it. You know, we got a couple cool stuff, like physical stuff. It wasn't a lot like they normally do. And then the game was trash. Not to mention, if you bought the game and you played it, you know, you wanted a wrestling game, you didn't feel like going back to the old ones because of this one. Well, one, the graphics somehow were worse than the previous year's games. But this game put a halt for a whole year. No, a whole 2 years. It came out in 2019. No new game in 2020, plus the pandemic, but that was a different thing. 2021, it was delayed, and so it didn't come out then. It didn't come out until March of 2022. When normally a 2K game, like if it's like 2K21, it would come out in 2020. Something like that. It was backed up. So you were stuck with this game for 2 years almost. Or right at 2 years.
2.5 years actually. Because it came... So this game came out in October of 2019. And the new one, WW2K22, came out in March of 2022. Which leads it right about 2.5 years. So, just like Dalton was talking about with the Yuke's leaving and Visual Concepts coming with 2K to work on WW2K20, there were big problems with it from the start. Number one, if I'm not mistaken, Visual Concepts works on the NBA 2K games. They're already prioritized with that. They've never made a wrestling video game. Just because it's under the 2K licensing does not mean that the people that did NBA or PGA and all that stuff doesn't mean they ever worked on a wrestling video game. So I feel like they went into it like, okay, let's take the scraps that Yuke's left and just make a sports game with it. And they did the opposite of that. First off, they made it like more cartoonish and stuff like that, and that's cool for a video game because with the
but not for this.
But not for this, no. You can have like you can have fictional stuff like in a video game and stuff like that, but it didn't fit with WWE.
It didn't fit what the series was.
Especially what it became. Now, this was right after SmackDown vs. Raw. I could see that. But for...
If it was after, like, All-Stars, which was a spin-off that they had, that was like a arcade beat-em-up almost.
Yeah, but for, like, 6 or so years, we got simulation sports games. The closest thing to the NBA games, other than the fact that it wasn't under Visual Concepts. And they just... I don't know how to describe it other than the fact that they ruined the game. They knocked down the graphics, and when I saw that, I figured, well, I don't care that much about graphics. So as long as the gameplay's better,
it won.
Then who cares about the graphics? But the gameplay wasn't better. It was the worst it's been since 2K15.
Well, and the fact was, along with the gameplay, the graphics, it would freeze constantly.
Yeah.
And kick you out of the game. Like, it would force close the application, saying there was an error. You couldn't fix it because it would constantly happen. If I threw it in right now, trying to look at something like an old
you got about 10 minutes before
15.
But if you got like
15
crashes.
minutes and it'll crash. That's how long you couldn't do like a 30-minute match, like a time limit match like that, or a Royal Rumble or anything like that, a battle roll. You couldn't.
If you had a match,
some reason,
if you had a match
for women,
more
it
than
would freeze.
If you had a match more than 5 people involved, or 4 people involved, it will freeze automatically.
You couldn't have tag team matches.
No.
It would crash.
Who wants to play a game that's just one-on-one? You can't use weapons. You can't use anything like that. I mean, it's just one-on-one regular matches. That's all you can do without it crashing. Maybe.
Yeah, if you were lucky, you had about like 30 minutes.
Exactly.
Even
so you
then,
couldn't do an
you couldn't
Iron
do a
Man
lot.
match. So I mean, it's just
you
like
couldn't create anything. And I think the online was just about worse.
I think the biggest issue with this game is that, well, first off, it was broken when it came out, and then it continued to be broken throughout the years, was that when this game came out in 2019, all the stuff from day 2K15 to 2K19, the bar wasn't set that high. Like, 2K19 was the best of the few, but, like, most of those games got the same reviews. So if they would have just taken the game and made it the same as 2K19, they probably would have ended up with a 7. But instead, they tried to do something different and just broke the entire thing.
Well, it's not do something different. It was
They didn't have a lot of time.
It was just pick up what was left.
If I'm not mistaken, that Visual Concepts had, what would you say, 7 months, maybe? Maybe. I mean, again, if they would have just taken the base of 2K19 and maybe changed the color scheme of some stuff, you probably would have just had another basic 2K game.
It'd have been broken still because they didn't know how to do anything.
I don't know, but but yeah, I mean, I actually really enjoyed 2K19, but really when it came to all of the 2K games, other than 2K14, none of them were great. They were good because I mean, it kept people buying them and all that stuff, but they weren't great. The 2K22 is the best of the 2K since 2K14. I mean, you had a good, like, 2K18 and 2K19 were okay. But other than that.
Moving on to another game in a franchise in a series, Assassin's Creed Unity is the black sheep of the Assassin's Creed games. Other than, like, Odyssey for most players. Or some of the newer ones, even Valhalla. And that's just because this game, just like 2K20, was a glitchy mess. Pulled up right here. One, they delayed the game a couple of months, like 3 months before or it was about 2 months before the release date, which was supposed to be October 28th of 2014. On August 28th, literally 2 months before that, they delayed the game to November 11th, 2014. So that was already a sign that said, okay, this game is not going as smooth as maybe they would have liked it to. I think this was the first game where it was truly for next gen. Because Black Flag and Rogue that came before it were for last gen and then put on next gen.
But even Rogue was never put on next gen until later on.
Yeah.
Like
that
when
was
it
the
came out, like
last
it did
gen
not.
game.
Yeah.
So there was already,
because didn't Rogue come out right when Unity came out? Because it was like, this is your
right before.
Because Unity did not come out on last gen.
No, it was a next gen only.
So they compensated with Rogue,
like,
which was technically a story right before Unity.
It led right into Unity.
Yeah.
It branched Assassin's Creed 3, which in the timeline was it was before Assassin's Creed 3 and stretched all the way to Unity. 4 was a step back in the past, couple decades. But it stretched from that time frame, so before 3, into 3, and then into Unity. It connected all those games to, like, say, this is, like, clearly a plan. We clearly did something here. And something interesting about it, the cutscene, I believe at the end of Rogue, is literally the beginning cutscene of Unity, because it shows the main character. Spoiler alert, I guess, but the game's been out almost a decade, so doesn't matter. Literally shows the main character's father getting killed, and you're running around as the kid, and you find his dead body right after the fact, which leads in from Rogue. But the game was such a glitchy mess. Like, there was an infamous glitch in cutscenes where a player model's face was gone, and all that was there was their floating eyeballs and mouth.
Imagine playing that in, like, the middle of the night.
Like
that's horrifying.
You remember Shark Boy and Lava Girl, right?
Yeah.
The floating face, the eyeballs, and the
course.
mouth. That's what that was, for the most part. If you don't get that reference, you're too young, or you didn't have a childhood. It was bad. A lot of people were really disappointed. I know when I got the game, it had already been patched when I got Unity. But it was still a glitchy mess because you could accept so many side missions by accident, like, and not even think about any of it. It broke the game for me. I couldn't continue. Like, it was so bad that I uninstalled the game. I never played it. It is the one. That's why I say it's the black sheep for the most part. I played it a handful of times, didn't get that far into it, and I quit. I didn't play another game until the next year, or was it? It wasn't the next year. Maybe. I think Syndicate came out in 2016. No. 2015. I think. Maybe. I know Origins came out in 2017. They took like a year off and didn't do like a yearly release for the Assassin's Creed games. So I think it was 2015 that it came out. I could literally check the box.
Which game are you referring to?
Syndicate.
2K. Oh my gosh.
Syndicate, I'm pretty sure came out in 2015.
Yes, it did, because 14 was the Unity.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to make sure because I was like, I don't know why 16 is.
Well, the reason I say that is because, and the reason I know that is because Black Flag, like you were saying, was not the first next gen Assassin's Creed, but it was on the first. It was the first one to be on PS4 console and Xbox One.
Yeah.
That was the year that those consoles came out. So you have that as 2013. Unity was 2014 because that's when they had time to do the next gen
game.
Because that's when a lot. Because like today 2K15, that was the first next gen 2K game, and that was 2014. Now the only one out of those that were next gen that was in 2013 was NBA, but they were ahead of the game on that because they were like, we're making sure that this is going to be
that was a priority
on the new
for them.
system. Yeah, it was way more of a priority than the last gen stuff. And so, but yeah, so Unity was 14 and Syndicate was 15.
For some reason, my mind was like 2016.
Well, it was because they took that break because of the movie, and that was 2016.
Well, no, I know why. No, that doesn't make any sense. Or does it? Was that my sophomore year? I don't remember. I remember like Syndicate was a big thing because a friend of ours, I traded him an Assassin's Blade for Dark Souls 2 or 3 for you to play. And he gave it back, of course. It was just for Halloween or something like that. But we would talk about Syndicate. So I know I was in high school. I just couldn't remember because my high school was like 2014, 2015 was my freshman year. 15, 16 was my sophomore year. So I think it was fall of sophomore year.
Right, yeah. But yeah, Syndicate was definitely 2015.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. But put in perspective, the game Unity was so glitchy. And like so many people were so upset about it, or not upset, but like angry with it, mad about it. Some were upset, I'm sure. After it got patched and everything, to make up for it, Ubisoft is like, we're gonna give the first DLC expansion that we had planned for free. And it was a decent expansion, so it was like to make up for it, everybody gets it for free, all the content in the first DLC, weapons, story, whatever, it was all free. So
well, the big thing is I feel like there was
other stuff too, but
a lot of the games that came out for the next gen, that was like maybe the first in the series, a lot of those didn't come out perfect because of the new. I guess we'll say the new technology. The new stuff that you would be using, a lot of the next gen games, the first in the series, didn't come out too great. Unity didn't do too good. W2K15 didn't do too great. NBA 2K15, which was the second installment in the next gen, but you can fight me on this. Anyone who likes 2K15 in the 2K15 in the NBA series, it was not good, and it had so many more problems than 2K14 and 2K16 the year after. So it didn't seem like 2014 in the sense of games that were maybe newer or maybe getting the hang of the next gen stuff came out that great.
Real quick, I found it hilarious about Unity. I was looking more into it. So they gave the first DLC pack for free. Compensation for those who bought the season pass of the game. You got a free digital download of one of 6 Ubisoft games, being Assassin's Creed Black Flag, The Crew, Far Cry 4, Just Dance 2015, Rayman Legends, or Watch Dogs, and would also continue to have access to a variety of additional content for Unity, including Assassin's Creed Chronicles China, but to claim the game, however, users had to forfeit their right to sue Ubisoft with regards to the game and the devaluation of their season pass. So I find that hilarious. It's like, you can have all this stuff, but you can't sue us. That's that. It's like, I guess it's compensation, but it's also like they're trying to cover their own ass. So it's like, you can have all this stuff, because the season pass was kind of diminished because we're giving all this stuff for free, but you can't touch us. And I don't think there was any lawsuits, to be honest. For certain games, there really isn't a lot of lawsuits, but I don't think there was really that much done after the fact. There was a lot of criticism, but that was about it. But I think that remains to be one of the worst launch Assassin's Creeds. Not really, like, it had like mixed reception, so it wasn't like panned or nothing, but just the launch day was so bad. Even after day one, it was so messy. So Clinton, on to another game. Do you have anything else potentially that can bounce off of that?
Sure. There's one game that I looked into, and this is another one I didn't play, but reading more into it, I realized how hated this game was when it first came out. I don't know if it ever gained any popularity, but I can't remember. I remember when it came out, but I don't remember all this stuff, but I do remember it being not too great on launch, and that was the Halo Master Chief Collection.
See, I wanted to bring up... Oh! Now I have an excuse to bring up another game that I forgot about. I don't have a lot on it, but I did read into the Halo Master Chief Collection. I remember about that. It was not good.
Well, the biggest
I don't
thing...
even think Halo Infinite was good either, though.
No, it wasn't too great.
I think it had a bad launch, too, for the most part, because there wasn't any DLC, or not DLC, there wasn't a lot of, like, maps, like, multiplayer stuff.
Not really, no.
A lot of content creators couldn't, with Infinite at least, not the Master Chief Collection, but you couldn't do a whole lot with the game. That's why you don't see a lot of players, there's some, but like some of the bigger ones, like, I know I watched Smitty or Wildcat or people like that. They played for a little bit. Some of it might have been sponsored, some of it not, but there's not a whole lot of videos because there wasn't a whole lot to do.
Right.
But I think I remember a little bit about the Halo Master Chief Collection.
Well, the big thing with that is that if you don't know what that game is, it's the first 4 Halo games in one. I guess if you got it on disc, one disc, but I mean it's just in one file.
Well, to put in perspective, games like the remaster of Assassin's Creed 3 that I have,
yeah,
it's technically 2 games in one. Or better, the Assassin's Creed Ezio Collection. That's 3 games. So it's on one disc, but there's 3 different kind of applications on the front page. So it's probably like that, where you just choose which game, and it'll go to that menu, and you can go straight into it.
So one file, 4 games. But the big issue with this,
or at least one I think it's actually separate files.
Right.
Maybe, but I don't know. Or at least separate, like, trophy systems or something like that. I have no idea.
But the big issue with this one is the fact that the online servers were practically unplayable on launch.
I wonder, what was the reason? Was it just they didn't...
I would like to think...
Did they not update the potato servers they had from the original games?
I don't know. I would like to think one of the bigger reasons is the fact that probably a lot of players came in to play them. And then also the fact that
just couldn't handle capacity.
It's so many games in one, the file probably just couldn't handle it.
And the cloud probably couldn't either, yeah.
I mean, it's just
because it couldn't differentiate.
That's a crazy amount of stuff. And I mean, how do you know if it was rushed or not? You never know.
Oh, well, I think it was rushed a little bit.
Well, there you go.
But I think, I could be wrong about that, though. One thing that it could have been was, say it is on one, it's one game. So it's technically on one, like, cloud data or whatever. You try to play a game, you try to play one of those, I doubt that it would be like this, but, like, possibly a reason. I doubt it, though. Like I said, I'm not a game developer. What if you're trying to play on these different servers for these different games, but they're technically all one server? Because, like, you can separate the game a little bit, but how separated is it? So, I mean, like, with the online servers, that could have been an issue. I doubt it. Like I said, it was probably something completely different. But that, thinking about that, it's like, that's really bad. And I thought some of the other multiplayer servers were bad.
Right.
And we don't even play Xbox, really.
No. But that's one of my big things is that in order for your game to be successful, all of the modes that you confirm to be on launch day need to be, for the most part, playable. Or you should do a... God, I can't believe I'm talking about this because it's been so long, or at least it feels like so long. Grand Theft Auto 5. GTA 5 did not come with online at first.
Yeah, it was like barely a year into it, right?
It was a while.
It was a couple months.
But it didn't come with it. And that's because there's just so much that goes into that. You have to make sure that that full open world loads right every time. It can hold, I said for the most part.
It loads slow.
I said for the but does it not do pretty good though?
For the most part, I guess.
For an online video game, does a pretty good job.
For an online video game that has been next year a decade.
Exactly.
At least. Or at least if not next year, a little bit into the year after.
And the big thing with Grand Theft Auto Online is the fact that not only is it a gigantic open world, you have to hold multiple servers for different people. Each server can hold up
on different consoles.
Yes, each server can hold up to 50 players at a time, in which during that server, people can go into cutscenes. People can pretty much do whatever they want to do in single player Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
In online, you can do that 50 players at a time.
Not to mention
full open world.
Not to mention not just the open world aspect. There's the missions, which are technically separate. Some of them, races, other game modes, and stuff like that. Those are completely different sections that you have to compensate for and figure out. Plus, they didn't even know if GTA Online would be a success.
Exactly. Now,
and it was compared to some of other.
Other Grand Theft Autos
online.
But other Grand Theft Autos, specifically GTA 4, had an online mode, and even though it wasn't perfect, it still had one. Going back to GTA 5, that one was, for the most part, perfected, other than the occasional crash or something like that. If you go back to this Halo game, which again is 4 games in one, potentially has the same server for all. That's a lot. But it's not free roam. You have specific game modes that you're playing with only a specific amount of players on each team that are in the one server. And to me, that just seems lazy to have a game mode where things are very specific to another game that came out as of right now almost 10 years ago, and in 2013 those servers were almost as good. It just seems like extremely rushed and a bit lazy. And it came out and there were big complaints about this game, I remember. And I remember people being really excited about this because those first 4 Halo games were critically acclaimed, especially the first 3. So I just think that it's really frustrating to see when a game like that is so praised for the previous versions, when you get the new version, it's unplayable.
Real quick, bouncing off of Halo, because I don't have much on this game. I just know that it was a flop. Battlefield 2048 was such a mess. I think it's officially dead. I don't even think it's
no one plays in it. No one plays it anymore.
Well, it was so bad. The online server was so garbage. You could barely play it. It was a mess. It would be glitchy. I think you'd get kicked out. It's another one of those situations, kind of like Halo Infinite, to where there wasn't a whole lot to do online, so you didn't have a lot of content creators do anything with it besides make fun of it, which I know a lot of people did. It was just so bad. Well, and I know, I don't play Battlefield games, or haven't, but compared to some of the other ones, it did so bad, especially being an online only game.
Yeah.
It was so bad.
Well, a big issue with it is that I'm not even talking about gameplay. It's just the statistics alone about how many players were actually playing this game. At the peak of this game, where it should have been highly played, comparing to the Call of Duties, games like Team Fortress 2, which were 15 years old at that point,
were higher.
Were beyond more played than this game. It's crazy. You can go on Steam. And you can go through the statistics, and you can compare games.
Yeah, the playtime.
For from 15 years ago, and they're being played more than that game, which came out. When was that? Was that?
It was at least, I think it was 2020, if not 2021.
Yeah, I mean, there should have been so many people playing those games.
But
But
that was another game that was delayed a couple of times and was still bad on launch.
But your game is beyond bad or even unplayable if at its
If Team
peak.
Fortress 2 is beating
Well,
it,
not even that, because that's a popular game, even though it
still
is
it's
super
old.
old.
Like,
At its peak, people are not playing it, and it's because they played it, and then they're like, it's not worth it anymore.
garbage.
And a lot of people, especially if it was physical, they probably went and just returned it.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
or you traded it in and tried to get something else.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was probably a one-day type of game where you play it and then you're done.
Yeah, you played it once or twice and you were
Yeah, and it's like there's no point. Or maybe you played it and then you're like, okay, well, this is early on, and then you get back when it should be good, just the same.
Yeah. And it has not had a redemption arc.
No.
Unlike the last two games that I believe we're going to talk about. One of them, No Man's Sky, also known to many people as No Man's By, because it was such a underwhelming mess.
Much potential.
The game had potential. You look back at the 2014 I think it was E3 2014. The first look at it was amazing. I know they expanded on it in 2015 as well. It was like, it looks so good. It was so, like, the promise of it. And expanded, millions of planets, universe, the potential to, you can meet up with your friends, this and that, explore the galaxy together, find new planets that haven't been discovered, register them, name them for yourself, all this stuff. Luscious flora and fauna, plants and animals. And then it was a dud.
Well, the thing is let's go back to the potential of the game, right? And you're talking about how much potential it really had. When they're explaining the concept of this game to you, like Don was saying, you could find planets, name them, like you can name them what you want to name them.
And animals and plants, you can name them, register them.
A big point of this game was that, number one, it was technically an online game.
It was infinite.
But I would say the galaxy that you were in was so gigantic that it was beyond like a fraction of a chance that you would ever see someone else in that game because of how large of a
I think that was the problem. That was after the fact. It's like you were presumed that it was a multiplayer game you could play with your friends, and then it's like after the fact you would be on the same exact planet, standing in the same exact spot, and the other player wasn't there. Like,
exactly.
You could compare it and you weren't there next to each other.
It's one of those things where the concept of the game, when it comes to the largeness of the game, is that a word? Largeness?
The size.
The
of the
size of the game is so big that you would never see any of your friends in the game or any other person because of how big it is. At first, that sounds really interesting because, like, well, yeah, I want to play with my friends, but that's cool that it's
such
so
a huge
big.
game.
But in reality, that was kind of just an excuse.
Well, and like the planets you would discover, they were pretty much copy paste with a different color scheme,
exactly,
and animals. It was like I remember firsthand the trailer. It's like it looked like a jungle. It was like a giant dinosaur alien in there, like so flourishing with life. And then you play the game and you go to a planet and it's literally just dust and rocks and cactus or whatever or snow. No animals, no real plants.
The best way to describe it, and just if you've never played the game, you've never heard the game, you've never seen the game.
Do it now. Like, it's amazing.
This is the initial concept of the game, or not the concept. I'm sorry, when it launched, and you're going to these different planets, like Don was talking about. Imagine like you end up on what you would think Mars would look like, but one is colored red and one is colored
like
green, and one is blue and one's it's all dust.
It's the same thing, but
no mountains, no rivers,
no
or anything
ocean.
Like that. The only one that I ever saw that was unique was, and I don't know if you remember this, but it was practically Water World. There was no land. It was just water. And your ship can run out of fuel
Yeah.
And you can't
can be
necessarily
trapped.
land on the water.
No, you can be trapped.
So if you're on a planet like that and you're looking for land, you can just, like Dalton said, you can be trapped.
But with all of its failures and failed promises and this and that, it came out in 2016. It's been out for 6 years. And Hello Games, the developers and creators of this game, they haven't stopped. They have constantly been updating this game to make it better. The game, as it stands now, is better than what they promised. Because you can play with your friends. You can have this giant fleet of ships and freighter ships. You can start your own colony. You can play a creative mode. You can build anything just about, like, ships, home bases, anything. It's an amazing game now because they kept expanding. They took what they had with the game that they sent out. Basically said, this is not what we delivered. We promise it's going to get better. The last time that I got on the game had to have been like 2020 or something like that. It's been a while since I've been on it. But when I looked at the game file, it said I hadn't played since like 2016, 2017. I think it was like one of those. I hadn't played since launch pretty much, or a year after. I played on the old version. As soon as it updated for me, I played on the new version. It was so different. But it looked so good. It was so much better. And now I think they're still adding DLC, like free. None of this is paid. They're still expanding on this game. And it's like one of those games where they've made it better and they've learned from their mistakes.
But a big issue with that is the fact that because of how bad of a launch it is, people aren't willing to give it an extra chance.
I think most people are now. It's like, if you were hurt by the game and you see it now, it's like, this is the game that I was promised 6 years ago.
In all honesty, the only reason I would get back on this game personally is to play the VR version. I think that'd be super entertaining.
Because I haven't done that yet. Like, I know Chance, our musical engineer, he has it. And, like, we've played at the same time, but we haven't played, like, on the same server because he just plays creative. It's like almost like Minecraft with him. But, like, it's so different now. And I want to get back on it whenever I get a chance and have free time. Just because I know it's fun. Now, at least. And there's so much more stuff coming. And I can't wait for it. Because I think maybe now you actually have an end game. And, like, that's a good story, like, a good arc of redemption. Almost like what the most recent, besides Overwatch, the most recent failed game that we have to talk about. 2021's, right, it came out in 2021. Cyberpunk 2077. Right, it came out in 2021, right?
It was 2020 or 2021. It was one of the two.
It was something, yeah. This game was delayed so much. The original concept of it was 2013, I believe. The first trailer, it was first announced in 2012. The first trailer was as early as 2013. And then trailers at E3 2018 and 2019, they had trailers. This game had been in, like, development almost as long as Red Dead 2 was. You know, it was a long time. And it kept getting delayed and pushed back. And it's from a developer that, you know, did The Witcher, CD Projekt Red. It's like they knew how to make a great game, and they had been promising this and delayed it and delayed it and delayed it, and they were pressured into releasing an unfinished game that was broken on most consoles. Like, if you were lucky to get a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, the game was barely playable. Like, it was better than the PS4 version and the Xbox One version, but you couldn't play it. Like, it was broken. The graphics looked horrible. It looked like a PS2 game for most people. It wouldn't load in properly. There was glitches. It was clearly an unfinished game. And, like, after release, you could see why they delayed it so much. But I think they were sued, actually, about it and for it. But they've been trying to fix their mistake with patches, continuous patches, a DLC roadmap, which in itself got delayed. I know, like, I think the first DLC should be coming out soon, or somewhat soon now, as of 2020. They're trying. They're trying to fix the game, and it's playable now, apparently. At least on next-gen consoles. PS4, I don't know. I haven't played it. But it's a game that's like, I want to give it a chance, because I never bought it. You know, it was really hard to buy, because I actually took it off the shelves and off the game store, because it was so bad. Like, out of all these games, this game was taken off the PlayStation Store. Because it was so bad on launch. And it was a broken mess. But they're trying. And at least you could say they're trying to fix it. And there's apparently already a sequel being planned. So they're not going to stop, at least. But they are going to have DLC up until, I think, next year. So they definitely are trying. I mean, and, you know, the most, or the least you could do is give them a chance. You see what happened with No Man's Sky. And that was 6 years of constant development, constant free DLC updates, and everything that changed the game to what it is now, which is a beautiful and playable game. So Cyberpunk could be that. You just got to give them a little bit of time and a little bit of hope and patience, because they can actually develop the game like they're supposed to, without so many corporate figures or anything coming in. So, unless you have any final comments, Clinton?
I just hope the redemption arc that you're talking about for Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky comes for Overwatch 2.
Yeah.
Because, man, oh man,
It looks like they're trying.
Is my opinion already soured beyond belief with this game.
And I haven't even played it yet.
And I have not touched it yet.
I just updated it. That was it. I haven't even played it. I know you haven't even updated it.
I was very satisfied with my last days of Overwatch 1. I really didn't mind that being the end of the end. You know, I didn't mind if that was it. And here we are, and I'm getting punished by being asked to play the second one. So we'll just have to see and go from there. Maybe it will get its redemption arc. Maybe
hopefully by this time, in a couple of months, maybe even a year into it, hopefully they've fixed it, made it playable for everyone. They don't have any or SMS. Hopefully a good game like the first one, and not as good. But that would be all for us for the failed launches video games. Hopefully you guys like the video. Subscribe. Check us out on our other channel, the LA Wrestling Podcast also. I've been your co-host, Dalton. You can find me on Instagram at LADubrand.
And I'm your other co-host, Clint. You can find me on Instagram, 2001.
And of course, you can follow the Instagrams for both podcasts, the regular podcast at LADo_podcast.
And you can follow the wrestling podcast at LADo_wrestling podcast.
And as always, we'll see you guys in the next one.